So to get started, let me take you back to November of 2013. I'm signing documents to sell a business that my wife and I had built over almost a decade. We had built a solid income, enough to be able to afford our first house, the place we raised our kids in. And we had dreams. We built it in a franchise model to where we would eventually sell it for $2 million. We had gotten up to 4 offices. We wanted to get to 10. And here I was signing documents to sell it for only $20,000. In my mind, I am a complete failure. It was the most demoralizing thing. See, I grew up in a small town in Louisiana wrenching on cars with my dad, and we grew up broke. And I just wanted to break that mold and do something big. So I was the kid who dreamed and tried something big. And met a great, my wife, actually I was talking to Rob, who's from Baltimore. I met my wife in Baltimore. And she was as motivated as I was, and we hit the ground running. And here I was in my first big venture, doing something that I thought was going to be huge and given almost 10 years of my life to, the beginning years of my kid's life. And it was a complete failure. I had thought that my talent was making money because I could touch anything and make money with it. So I'm an entrepreneur. I'm going to go out and I'm going to make a bunch of money. That was my goal. Now, fast forward 2 years later. Went through some really rough times and trying to figure out who I was. And now I'm standing next to a stage of over 5,000 people about to go up and speak. And the first thought that I had was, you've arrived. I felt great, right? I'm about to speak in front of 5,000 people. They're reading my bio right now. I'm fired up. But almost as fast as that feeling came up, it was replaced with a weight of responsibility. Because it was my job to inspire these people to do something great with their life. And then it was followed by a feeling of satisfaction. Because for the first time in my life, what I was about to do was what I knew I was supposed to do. I had found my passion. I traveled halfway across the country. I drove. I paid for my own hotel. And I was speaking for free. As a guy who thought his passion was to make money, to do something completely for free that I was actually losing on, and having more satisfaction than anything I'd done in my entire life. I had truly found my passion. I want to give you guys a statistic. According to Forbes, 7 out of 10 people, not dislike, absolutely hate what they do for a living. Detest it. 70%. In your junior year of high school, you're given a sheet of paper of industries in descending order based on average income. The company that I sold was an IT-based company. As a child, I did not dream of owning an IT-based company. I dreamed of being an astronaut, of being a firefighter, of playing professional baseball. But in my junior year of high school, I'm given a sheet of paper and I'm told to choose what I want to do with my life. And it's based on a dollar amount. 70% of people have followed that and hate what they do. The sad part is 76% of people have less than $1,000 between checking and savings. So they followed an equation that they thought was supposed to be right. It ends up being wrong. They end up being broke and unhappy. I think that's one of the biggest issues with this country. You can go all different directions, but at the root of it, I think that's one of the biggest issues. So that leaves only 30% of people which are happy, which in my opinion, actually followed their passion, because to be happy, you have to follow what you enjoy. You can take all 30% of this country and fit them into Yale County, Arkansas. Look at the size of that. That'll bring a little perspective as to what this country is moving towards. And I'm not here for any political movements, any kind of stuff, so don't shut me out. I truly believe that we're supposed to follow our passions. And to be wildly successful, you have to follow your passion, because very few people are going to follow if you don't believe what you're talking about. So we're going to hit 3 quick points in this talk. The first one's going to be, what is your passion? Now, when you ask somebody, what is your passion? You look at most definitions, it does not talk about things that are of the successful or positive nature. It talks things of the sexual nature. That's not what this particular event is about.
I'm at the wrong place.
Yeah, that was the room down the hall. So when you ask somebody, what is your passion? It's a very difficult question to answer. So I've heard a couple of different ways to ask it. The first one's a little bit deeper than what is your passion, and it is, what makes your heart sing? Now, if you're like me, the first time I heard that question, what makes your heart sing? Something came to your mind, and you probably pushed it down based on being a responsible adult and moved to the next option. The fact is that first thing that you thought about was actually the thing that would bring you probably the most joy in life if you were to follow it. And most people shove it down. Now again, what makes your heart sing is maybe a little too romantic. I am a romantic, so maybe it's not quite clear enough. So let's go a little bit further. And this is not to puff me up, but the example I gave you before of where I drove halfway across the country, paid for everything, is more excited to do that than anything I'd ever done because it wasn't based on a money-ending answer. I'm not saying you're not going to be able to monetize it, but that should not be the first move. So what are you, if someone came up to you right now and asked you to do it and to travel halfway across the country, cover all your own expenses and be able to do it, if you would do it, that's your passion because it cannot be based on money first. So that's our first point is what is your passion? So go ahead and move 2 slides, please. Now, before I get into this, actually come back one. Before I get into this, what I'm about to talk about does have a religious story to it. If you're not religious, please stay with me. That's not the point that I'm about to make. But I am going to talk on faith, and whether you're a religious person or not, you are not going to be wildly successful in anything that you do in life unless you have faith. The definition of faith is believing you can see it, believing in it before you see it. And you're not going to be successful unless you believe you can get there. So even though I cover some religious things on what I believe, don't lose me on that because that's not the point that I'm trying to make. Go ahead and flip to that slide now, please. This is my son, my 6-year-old son in February of this year. He was perfectly healthy, and within 3 days, he's intubated in an induced coma with some freak infection in his lungs. And his kidneys are shutting down, which is this machine you see here, so he's on full-time dialysis. Now, as I'm going through this, being a religious person, there's a scripture in the Bible that says that the power of life and death is in the tongue. So I'm talking to very highly educated doctors and things like that, telling my kid's going to be fine. And the Bible also says that if you believe in your heart and do not doubt that you will see it. So I'm having to, almost in an argumentative stance against educated, highly educated people. Guys, I'm a country boy from Louisiana. I'm not that educated. I'm having to stand against these guys in belief of what I believe that my son's going to be perfectly fine. Why do I bring this up? According to what I believe in the Bible, if I had doubted, I break that equation. Now, what's the other side of that? I don't know. But if I would have doubted, what could have happened to my son? When you begin to pursue your passion, guess what? Chances are when I asked you what your passion, when I answered those things that came up in your head, they're probably weird. They're probably not a normal industry-related job. There's something your colleagues are going to look at you like you're an idiot for pursuing. But if you stand, option A for me was my son walking out of the hospital, which, by the way, he did. Perfectly fine. We just had his 4-month checkup. Not a thing. He had a 1 in 10,000 chance of pulling through. And today, perfectly fine, running around, just my crazy curly-headed boy again. But option A was that. Option B was losing my son. Option B was death. And you may think it's extreme, but guess what? When you're pursuing your passion, if you don't act like option B is death, you have a pretty good chance that you're going to fail, which is why there's such a huge failure rate in people pursuing it. People start laughing at you. Money starts getting tight. Things start getting hard. You can't find the next thing to do. And you go to option B, which is lesser. And now you become 7 out of 10. You hate what you do for a living. You do it for a paycheck. You might drive a nice car and have a nice house. And you hate your life. So many people are walking in that. So you have to act as if option B wasn't even there. You have to stand on that. You can go ahead and go to the next one. So we talked about what is your passion. We talked about focusing on your passion. The third one we're going to talk about is freely giving away your passion. I've been a little bit deep, I know, in the first things I've said. So we're going to lighten it up a little bit. So on the premise of what I said earlier about people are going to think you're nuts, the story I'm about to show you is a buddy of mine who's rich. His name's Richard Barker. He is the incredible hypnotist. Okay, so when you think of hypnotist, you probably think of the same thing I did when I first heard him. He's been a client of mine for 10 years. We ended up being really good friends. But I'm like, what are you, a corny or something? Incredible hypnotist? Well, Richard has become wildly successful in what he's done. He's been on the Today Show, the Tonight Show, travels the country, hugely successful. And I was at his house. He had just built a pub at his house. So we're over there having a few pints. Go ahead and post up the next picture, please. I'm going to talk to you guys about a lizard. Now, this is not the actual lizard I'm going to talk about. I left the credits at the bottom. I was driving in the story that I'm going to give you, so I wasn't able to take a picture. I'm over at his house hanging out, and we're encouraging. Listen, guys, if you're not hanging around with people that encourage you, that are wildly successful, that think on your level, I encourage you to do so. I left there so fired up and encouraged, and I'm on my way home, and I look out over on the outside the window, and there's a lizard hanging on. And I'm driving down the road doing 30, 35 miles an hour, and you just kind of see it. You're like, that's kind of weird, and there's a lizard holding on. Well, it's 3 or 4 miles down the road, and I look over, and he's still on there, and he's holding on tight. Now I'm getting kind of intrigued. I'm like, look at this guy go, man. He's holding on tight. I take a right turn on the next highway, and now I'm going 55, 60 miles an hour. Now I'm intrigued. I'm like driving like this, like, what's he going to do? He's holding on for dear life, trying to hide behind the mirror. I can see him moving his head a little bit. You kind of laugh because you're trying to get in the head of the lizard. Like, what's he thinking? He can't really think about aerodynamics, but he looks like he's trying to figure it out. And you may laugh. But then all of a sudden, I started feeling bad for him. All of a sudden, I saw myself in this lizard. Where when I was trying to redefine my life, I was in that same situation. It seemed like everything was trying to shove against me. I started feeling bad for this lizard. I literally pulled over on the side of the road, got out my car, walked around, grabbed this lizard and set him down. I could tell you right now, I think I'd have been devastated if he'd have flew off. I'd have probably felt really bad about myself. Now, what's that story about? Now this is a lizard. I'll say something. But the example I want to give you is someone. When you become wildly successful because you followed your passion, listen, when you follow your passion, let me encourage you. I don't care if your passion is underwater basket weaving. There's some people out there who want to pursue that passion. And if you get out there and you do it with passion and you show it without holding anything back, people are going to follow you. People are attracted to people with passion, and you are going to monetize it. If you're persistent, if you're consistent, you continue moving in it. And then you're going to be successful. And I hope everybody in here hits that level, and maybe some of you already have. And when you're at that level, you need to start looking for the guys that are where you were. And you need to take your passion and freely give it away. Because as Liz was talking about, we're on this earth for each other. And those of you that are, I'm going to speak more so because I don't know any other areas. Those of you from this Florida wonderful atmosphere of people that really pursue life without looking at the person to their right or left. It's something that we've forgotten. And so I'm going to challenge you that once you become successful, that you keep your eyes open for people that are going through that you reach out and you do whatever you can to help them make it through that. So the 3 points again are 1, to find your passion. And I'm going to challenge you, maybe something was tweaked in your heart today. And you realize that you're making great money, but you don't like it. And I'm not saying you have to throw that away. You can do it on the side. Begin to figure out what your passion is. We're all super busy. And we never stop long enough to figure it out as adults. Sit down, quiet, long enough to figure out what your passion is. 2, focus on it, like there is no other option. And number 3, once you become that, freely give it away. Just a quick note about me. I'm married for 13 years, just hit 13 years a couple weeks ago. My wonderful wife, Karina. We've got 3 kids. My daughter is Alexa, she's 8. My son, Noah, that you saw there, 6. And we've got a newbie. She's 9 months old. Her name is Gianna. We run 4 different businesses now. We have a transportation company with limos. We're part of a network marketing organization called Limu. We have a real estate investment arm, and we do internet marketing as well. What I do with Passion and Grit is my passion. You can look us up online. I did leave cards out, but it's passionandgrit.org. I know .org is not normal for an organization or for a company to put, but I do see Passion and Grit as an organization, not as just a company. It's not just about us. It's about people. And I'm going to leave you off with the same way I leave off all my videos. And that is, as always, live life with passion and grit. Passion, because without it, life is just boring. And sometimes you got to grit your teeth and do whatever it takes to succeed, because life is short. And it's time we stop just surviving it and start living it now. Love you guys. A feeling of being sick and tired, A choice to sit in it or to get better. The most important thing that you have to realize is you've got to realize in your heart that you're worth it.